In a world shaped like a fairy tale dream, now twisted into a nightmare, magical beings and creatures lurk at every step you take, where the unknown stretches endlessly, full of dark secrets, strange magic, and shadows that watch without blinking. Colossal white creatures loom in the tall grass, impossible to ignore. Even the beautiful ones feel wrong, like forest gods wear borrowed skin. Witches whisper from the woods, their spells wrought slow and sweet, spoken through hollow smiles. Toads speak riddles that feel too personal, like they already know your name and your end. Even the homes feel alive, tilting, breathing, and remembering. Some corners of the woods offer insight, but never for free. Massive beasts guard the dark, where ancient places no one should enter, where bones whisper warnings. But not every danger charges at you. Some just wait, silent, watching just beyond the door. Even the beasts here flinch at things they can't fight and won't name. And sometimes the forest lashes out without warning, loud, brutal, and without mercy. Magic here isn't just power, it's a curse, twisting flesh until they become something else entirely. Some forces show you the future, but what they really can burn brighter than any flame and leave scars deeper than any wound. And in the middle of it all, a small goblin boy with a dagger and a wolf at his side. How's it going? It's Ryan, and today I honestly just wanted to share this story because I genuinely really loved it. I went into Goblin not knowing what to expect, just thinking it'd be a quirky little fantasy, but what I found instead was one of the most surprisingly, emotionally, and immersive comics I've ever read. The world is just so full of wonder and dread, strange creatures, eerie magic, beautiful yet haunting places, and characters that just feel completely alive. And under all of that, there's heart. There are real emotions and themes about identity, loss, and becoming more than what the world expects you to be. It's one of my new favorites now, and I want you to see why. Rick's story begins in the quiet peace of his family's forest home, tucked apart from war, wild magic, and death. But one night, fire tears through everything, and just like that, the forest stops being home. Left with nothing but fury and grief, Rick swears revenge. But his path shifts the moment he frees Fistbreath, a wild, untamed wolf whose loyalty will shape everything that follows. Their journey winds into places older than memory, towards whispers of the first tree and something waiting beneath its roots. He meets strange allies, or at least they seem like allies. But in a place like this, you can never be sure. What begins as a quest for revenge becomes something far stranger, darker, and more powerful than it first appears. This is Goblin, a story that begins with a small goblin in the woods and spirals into a tale of ancient magic, lost truths, and everything the forest tried to bury. It all begins deep in the whispering woods where a young goblin named Rick is being taught how to hunt by his father named Rule. Despite his efforts, Rick struggles with the bow, often blaming the weapon itself and complaining that his father believes he is bad at everything, especially since he is not allowed to hunt anything cooler, like a bear. Rick mentions that he's been practicing his bear call, but his father remains patient and calm, reminding Rick that being cunning and patient are the true strengths of a goblin. To demonstrate this, Rule easily shoots a deer, showing the skill that comes with experience. He then turns to Rick, asking him to finish the deer's suffering. When Rick points out that he has no weapon on him, Rule offers him his old dagger, explaining that it's more than just a blade. It is a sword that has been part of the forest for generations. Rule tells Rick that the dagger now belongs to him, but emphasizes that it must be used with respect and never wielded in anger or malice. As they continue their walk, they come across a giant footprint pressed deep into the earth, a silent and ominous reminder that something far larger and more dangerous is nearby. Later that evening, Rule discusses this unsettling discovery with his wife, Althea. She reassures him that they are far enough away from the human villages to be safe, but Rule remains troubled by rumors he has heard from witches about a tattooed man, warning that it only is a matter of time before danger arrives. Althea urges him not to dwell on such thoughts tonight, especially since it's Rick's birthday. While outside, the young goblin swings the dagger excitedly, imagining himself in heroic battles. During dinner, Rick questions what they plan to do about the humans. His parents try to brush off the topic, but Rick, growing bolder, suggests that they should attack first. This suggestion immediately angers Rule, who firmly reminds him that violence is not up the goblin's way. Feeling dismissed and frustrated, Rick loses his appetite and walks away. His mother calls him dramatic, and Rule softly remarks that Rick reminds him of her. Othea laughs, joking that Rule is lucky he can cook well because otherwise she might have left him long ago to marry some troll instead, foreshadowing that there are other mystical creatures that inhabit their world. Later that night, Rick wakes up suddenly, coughing as thick smoke fills the air, choking and burning his lungs. The house is on fire. Disoriented, he stumbles out into the rain, calling desperately for his parents, but finding only chaos. Then through the haze, he hears his father's voice screaming at him to run. Rick finds Rule lying wounded and bloodied on the ground with a tall man who bears tattoos covering his face looming over him. Filled with rage, Rick charges forward with his dagger, but the attack backfires, sending him crashing to the ground and everything goes black. When he regains consciousness, he discovers that both of his parents are dead. With heavy sorrow, he buries them on a hill overlooking the forest and vows to seek vengeance, unaware that a group of fairies has been watching him from a distance. Remembering where his mother hid their gold, he thinks of using it to buy a proper sword and shield, but before he can act, the fairies approach him, speaking in riddles and warning that no ordinary weapon will be enough to defeat the tattooed man, only a weapon blessed by a goddess who holds such power. The fairies lead him to a hollow tree stump under the cover of night, and then they vanish, having stolen all of the gold in the process. Rick is left alone and crying, overwhelmed by the loss and loneliness. As he cries, that was all he had left. Now he has nothing. But as the morning comes, a radiant and towering forest goddess appears before him. Rick tells her that his family prayed to her, although he never believed that she was real. This is because Rick says that goblins are creatures of darkness in this world. He begs her to grant him the power to avenge his parents. In response, she shows him visions of burning and endless bloodshed, warning him the cost of such power. Rick insists that he only desires justice against this one man. The goddess asks for his dagger, which he dismisses as a mere toy. She reveals that the dagger was carved from the first tree, the source of all life itself, and that such a weapon can cut through any steel, but only if wielded by a pure heart. Because Rick has damaged the dagger, it must now be healed. She gives him H&Cs and instructs him to cross the great river and seek out the first tree. As Rick travels onward, he hears story that the river lies within the land of men. While still in the forest, he comes across a group of trolls sitting around a fire, boiling soup with questionable ingredients, which is, the main ingredient is poop. Ew. They'll laugh about capturing a wolf that they will use for pit fights to earn money and stealing gold from strange frog-like creatures called the Dopta. Rick sneaks closer to where the trolls keep their gold and sees the wolf trapped inside a cage. He tries to free the wolf, but is bitten in the process, causing him to yelp in pain. The trolls check on him briefly, but Rick hides quickly. Remembering his father's lesson about patience, he waits until the trolls fall asleep, then quietly slips back into their camp. Offering the wolf coins, he opens the cage and promises freedom. Instead of attacking, the wolf jumps on him and licks his face in gratitude. Attempting to escape, they are discovered by the trolls, who give chase all the way to the cliff's edge. Suddenly, a bear appears, and Rick admits that he is not ready to face bears just yet. Without hesitation, he and the wolf leap off the cliff together, falling into the valley below, but surviving the impact. As they continue their journey, Rick tells the wolf to stop following him, though it is clear that the wolf will not leave his side. Eventually, they discover a glowing cave marked with a scratched warning sign that says beware. Inside, they find a huge statue of a minotaur carved in stone, but Rick doesn't really think much of it. As they go deeper into the cave, they find strange shimmering water and glowing crystals. Rick tries fishing in the eerie waters, but catches nothing and breaks down in tears, while the wolf manages to catch a fish proudly. Though Rick initially eats alone, he shares some of the catch with the fish, warning her that she will need to fend for herself by morning. When the morning comes, the wolf wakes Rick by licking his face, and he jokes about her stinky breath before naming her the name Fish Breath. Soon after, they hear a crying voice and find a massive minotaur sitting among bones near the riverbank. The minotaur traps them, desperately longing for friendship after being cursed by witches following the consumption of one of their own. In other words, the minotaur ate one of the witches and is now cursed to the cave of sadness and cannot leave. Kinda crazy. Rick pretends to play along with the minotaur's loneliness, giving him a fake goblin's heart stone. He does this as a token of his friendship and cleverly tricking his way out of the trap. Continuing their journey, they reach the great river, only to find out that all the boats have been destroyed. In the quiet and deserted town of Ara, they encounter a dying man who warns them that the tattooed man who passed through recently, bringing nothing but hell in his way. Determined to continue, Rick builds a raft despite not knowing how to swim. Midway through the journey, strong waves destroy the raft, and Fishbreath falls into the water. Taking one last glance at the first tree that's so close to him in reach, Rick decided at the last minute dive in after Fishbreath as they both sink beneath the water. They awaken in the murky swamp of Agon, where a blind woman resting on a raft calls Rick by the name Route. She claims he is her lost son. She brings him to her home, feeds him warm soup, and speaks of her family, including her omelet necklace and her lost daughter named Mary. The old lady then watches Rick sleep while smiling during the night. Before they leave, Rick gives her the goddess's seeds, realizing that perhaps these were meant for someone and not something. The old lady tells him he wasn't wearing his amulet because the mother always knows, as she sadly watches him leave. As they travel to the great river on a raft, Fishbreath looks disappointed, but Rick insists that he paid her fairly as he left all his gold left for her to buy a new boat. Soon after, they are ambushed by the warriors of the Doctor Frog creatures. Turns out the trolls somehow survived the bear attack and got captured by the frogs later because they mentioned about stealing their gold before. The king, biased against goblins, sentences Rick to death, claiming it is a mercy compared to what lies inside the first tree. Rick bargains for his life by promising treasure from the tree, and the king agrees but keeps Fishbreath as insurance. Inside the first tree, Rick faces terrifying illusions. He sees his parents burning, accusing him of failure, and skeletons lurking in the shadows. One skeleton wears Raoul's amulet, and Rick shoots it and escapes. A majestic deer-like entity appears, confronting him with a riddle, which Rick answers correctly: the tallest trees of the Whispering Wood. The goddess reappeared. Rick is then transported to where the forest goddess was. She reveals that the journey was never about truly finding the tree itself, but about the growth and choices of Rick. He has freed the wolf, survived deadly encounters, outsmarted the Minotaur, and showed kindness over greed. His dagger transforms into a true sword, but time has passed and the tattooed man has now become the king. Returning to the adopted village, Rick finds it abandoned. Fishbreath, now fully grown, reunites with them, and together they cross a newly built bridge made of living forests. At the blind woman's home, they find the seeds have grown, but she is gone. Rick apologizes at her grave for deceiving her, but is grateful someone built her a grave, meaning someone out there cares about her. He then lays Raoul's amulet on her grave, telling her that Raoul has finally come home, so now she can finally rest. They approach the ruined forest and the looming black castle from afar. Rick says farewell to Fishbreath, telling her that this is his fight alone. Inside the castle, he sees it's empty and nobody else is there. The guards have now turned into skeleton. Rick confronts the king, who mocks him and says he has no memory of Rick whatsoever, because that's how small and irrelevant he is to him, as has destroyed many monsters in the past. They duel fiercely, and although Rick emerges victorious, he spares the king's life. The king claims that he will be remembered forever, and Rick's gonna regret this, but Rick walks away, leaving the past behind. 100 years later, explorers discover the king, who has now turned into skeleton. They break his crown and mock him as some nobody whose crown is probably worthless. Suddenly, a haunting howl echoes through the forest, and explorers flee in terror. They say it must be the legend of the Goblin and his wolf, while the others say it's just an urban legend, but they don't want to stick around long enough to see if it's true. Meanwhile, Rick and Fishbreath stand silently at the grave of Rick's parents, honoring what has passed, but it is clear that the story is far from over. In the Lupine forest, they find a wagon covered in mysterious symbols. A witch appears, showing Rick visions of hunters, death, and the looming doom of Fishbreath before vanishing. Rick denies that the fortune will come true, as he doesn't want to believe that Fishbreath would ever die, calling the witch a phony. Later, they encounter some hunters, and one of them captures Fishbreath while Rick is knocked unconscious. The hunters find a horn of Harrow among his belongings. Despite dire warnings, Rick convinces the hunters to blow the horn. When they do, a surge of magic explodes outward, causing the hunters to fall with their ears ringing. Seizing the moment, Rick grabs Fishbreath, and together they run away once more into the depths of the forest. The hunters relentlessly pursue them through the dense wilderness, and as Rick knows with a tense voice, one of the witch's fortunes has already come true. Suddenly, they come across the Thunderwalkers, massive white creatures roaming across the grass. Rick and Fishbreath quickly leverage to create a distraction, allowing them to slip away from the hunter's grasp. Even though the hunters lose their immediate trail, they remain confident that they can anticipate Rick's destination by the unmistakable sound of the horn, suspecting he will head towards the town of Silverkeep to sell it. When entering Silverkeep, the atmosphere is thick with fear as every villager cowers at the thought of monsters roaming nearby, an unease shared even by Rick and Fishbreath themselves. Attempting to find some assistance, Rick approaches one of the fish market owners, only to be met with a curt dismissal and a harsh remark that he disgusted the man just by existing. Undeterred, Rick and Fishbreath press on until they discover the shop where the horn can be sold, a curious place brimming with strange and mysterious magical items that hint at untold secrets. Inside the shop, they encounter the owner, a peculiar adopted off the frog, who immediately unsettles Rick with his imposing presence. Rick explains that he found the shell in the Spirit Sea and wishes to sell it. The frog reveals that the shell is infamous for paralyzing anyone who hears its dreadful sound with unbearable pain, though for Rick himself seems immune for reasons unknown. The frog goes on to explain that the goblins are widely disliked, but whoops are even more feared and hated, pointing to a poster depicting a menacing whoop to emphasize the point. He also mentions that the only person showing kindness to monsters like them is a woman named Miss Evelyn. As Rick and Fishbreath step outside, they are greeted by a chilling sight of hunters who have tracked them down, accompanied by a hostile crowd of villagers. The tension escalates quickly as the hunters and villagers prepare their attack, intent on killing them both. Readying themselves, Rick and Fishbreath brace for battle, but just as an arrow whizzes towards Rick, a sudden intervention halts it midair. A woman steps forward, accompanied by a tall humanoid creature standing protectively by her side, and we learn this woman is named Miss Evelyn and her guardian is named Mr. Domo. They save Rick and Fishbreath from harm and swiftly escort them away from the dangerous streets of Silverkeep. Miss Evelyn calmly explains that not everyone harbors hatred for monsters, revealing that she runs a school called Underwood, a sanctuary and a home for monstrous beings and wolves alike. As they journey, the group encounters wolf hunters on their path, prompting them to take a less traveled route. As they're talking on their way there, Miss Evelyn offers Underwood as a refugee where Rick and Fishbreath can stay for a time. Fishbreath is intrigued with the other wolves showing curiosity as they enter Underwood. Miss Evelyn gently suggests Rick that she should be with her own pack, stating that a wolf belongs with her pack. Upon arrival, they share a meal served by Ula, a troll servant who quietly tends to their needs. While Rick enjoys the food, Miss Evelyn attempts to persuade him to remain in the sanctuary, but he declares that he prefers the freedom of living in the forest. Evelyn then asks him about how that worked out for his family, causing Rick to pause and sadness washing over his expression. An unspoken tension hangs in the air. After some negotiation, Rick agrees that Fishbreath may stay with Underwood, only if he can see her every day. With that understanding reached, Miss Evelyn leads Rick inside to show him around. From a distance, Ula the troll watches with quiet intensity hidden from view. Evelyn escorts Rick to his room, closing the heavy door with a resounding slam, leaving him in the darkness. When Rick calls out pleading for Miss Evelyn to open the door, green glowing eyes emerge in the shadows. Chillingly, they welcome him to Underwood with a haunting warning. I hope you like it here because you will never leave. The following morning, we discover that the mysterious creature with glowing eyes belongs to a goat-like child named Gabe. This ends up being Rick's new roommate. Rick notices a doll resting on Gabe's bed, which is named Mr. Butterbeans. Gabe shares that the last child who tried to room with him attempted to steal the doll, but was quickly adopted and whisked away. Gabe advises Rick to heed everything Miss Evelyn says, referring to her bluntly as an old hag, only for Miss Evelyn herself to appear silently behind him, overhearing every word. When Rick asks if he can see Fishbreath now, Miss Evelyn responds coldly that it is not yet the time, explaining that they have struck a deal. Rick must attend his classes and promise to always tell the truth. She hands him new clothes and instructs Ula to prepare them, all the while sneaking glances at Rick as he changes. When he inquires about the other children, Ula bluntly describes them as all being jerks, a claim reinforced by a scene of food being thrown at Gabe as they all go down for dinner. At the dinner table, the group of children gather. Worm, Fufu the owl, Liz the Liz girl, Danny the fairy, and Gurgle. Yeah, we don't really know what that is. Worm immediately makes his presence known as a bully, creating a mess for Ula to clean up. When Rick stands up in defense of the troll servant, Worm mocks him, expressing disgust at Rick's support for Ula. He teases him and says that he likes her, and a heated argument ensues, culminating in a scuffle that unsettles the table. Class soon begins, with the children learning about the history of Evonia, the world they inhabit. Miss Evelyn encourages them to applaud a newly adopted child named Fogbear, whom Rick is set to replace. As Rick approaches Fogbear's desk, he notices a carved message that chillingly reads, "All of them drown." Miss Evelyn urges Rick to focus as the lesson continues, revealing that the kingdom's greed and malice transformed the king into a troll, a fate undone by his son, the Good Prince. The myth of the forest goddess is brought up as a mere legend, but Rick boldly asserts her existence, prompting laughter from the class. Miss Evelyn sternly warns him against lying, though Rick, frustrated, knows he is telling the truth and never wanted to be part of this class anyways. Unable to contain his feelings, he storms out to find Fishbreath, declaring his intention to leave. Before he can escape, Mr. Domo blocks his path, informing him that the class has been assigned a 1,000-word essay on the dangers of myths, and Rick must return to his room. Meanwhile, Fishbreath finds herself with the Wolf Keeper, who explains that the magical leash around her neck will not activate as long as she behaves. Entering the wolf enclosure, she sees other wolves, including one who repeatedly bangs his head against the fence. It does this in frustration while the rest keep their distance. Their behavior is cold and unwelcoming. Suddenly, a group of wolves ambush Fishbreath, but the keeper intervenes. using a magical device connected to her leash to subdue with a painful shock. The others back off, though Fishbreath's gaze is drawn to a mysterious black wolf watching from afar. As Fishbreath approaches the wolf banging its head, the keeper explains that the creature does this every day, futilely attempting to escape but never succeeding. He advises Fishbreath to blend in, warning that tomorrow she will have to participate in a ritual game. All wolves are forced to play in this one, and the only way to survive in this harsh environment is to keep your head low. Back in their shared room, Rick and Gabe discusses their situation, with Gabe insisting it is safer to stay, while Rick clings to the desire of freedom. Quietly, Rick prays to the forest goddess. Outside, Rick notices the keeper burning his old clothes too, signaling a deeper severance from the past. In her cage, Fishbreath reminisces about the moment Rick saved her. The sharp clang of a bell signals the start of the wolves' game. An hourglass counts down as Mr. Domo tosses a doll into the enclosure, sparking a fierce battle among the wolves. Unlike the other, Fishbreath refrains from fighting. The keeper is saddened to see her disobedience, but Miss Evelyn says she will learn in time. When the game concludes, the victor emerges, and the wolves are fed dead animals, all except Fishbreath, who is denied food due to her non-participation. The following day, Miss Evelyn announces that Gurgle has been adopted, and Worm slams a book on Rick's head, drawing laughter from the class. Rick's frustration boils over, and Miss Evelyn declares he has been nothing but trouble, summoning him to her office. There, she reveals Rick's sword is mounted as a decoration, and she claims she is doing him a favor by stripping away his savage past. Rick pleads with her to let him and Fishbreath return home, but she refuses, insisting that Fishbreath is better off without him, where she truly belongs. As punishment, Rick is ordered to clean one of the mansion's rooms, where he discovers paintings and statues linked to a fortune that the witch once told him earlier. Mr. Domo catches him examining the artwork and attacks, but Miss Evelyn intervenes, expressing her disappointment in Rick's behavior once again. The next day on the way to class, Worm resumes his bullying, cruelly reminding Rick that nobody likes him and boasting about his own adoption. Rick attempts to share the witch's fortune and the mysterious painting with Gabe during class, but Evelyn interrupts. Rick then gets in trouble again once more about talking about encountering a deer man. This time, now both Rick and Gabe are punished. Driven by curiosity and desperation, Rick later moves the statue to align with the painting, revealing a hidden passage. Inside, they find a secret library where Ula is attempting to cast spells, but struggles due to her weak magic. Ula explains Miss Evelyn is unaware of that hidden sanctuary to Rick and Gabe. She describes Miss Evelyn as an awful woman and reveals that the house originally belonged to her and Mr. Domo's family, passed down from her mother, whose portrait hangs on the wall. Since her mother mysteriously left one night and never returned, Mr. Domo has changed, becoming the cold figure he is now. Meanwhile, Fishbreath, who has been described as looking famished, chooses to participate in the game this time. The Black Wolf lunges at her in an attempt to claim victory, but Fishbreath ultimately triumphs. Winners receive a special individual reward, and Fishbreath is said to be forthcoming. Miss Evelyn openly discusses her cruel plan to have the wolves kill each other off, ensuring only the strongest to survive. The story then shifts to the ancient history of Evonia, where the first tree existed, and the forest goddess Danu is introduced along with her shadowy counterpart Bella. The Danu, saddened by her sister's bitterness, withdrew into the forest, creating old creatures, while Bella's resentment sparked wars and violence. Danu's tears formed a circle of golden leaf trees that remain sacred. Ula reads from one of the rare books found in a secret library telling them this. It heavily contrasts with Miss Evelyn's fabricated textbook that she teaches the class herself. Gabe vocally disagrees with the stories, and the group discusses escape plans, though they feel trapped by Miss Evelyn's magical enchantment securing the mansion's rooms. Ula reveals she needs something meaningful to fuel her spells, though her magic remains weak due to her troll heritage and Miss Evelyn's disdain, or at least that's what Gabe believes. Ula guides him outside, pointing to Miss Evelyn's office and revealing that a wagon arrives every other night, offering a potential window for escape after stealing the keys from the office. Spying Miss Evelyn nearby, the group flees to avoid detection, entering a mysterious hidden chamber with a strange well at the center. They overhear voices approaching: Miss Evelyn, Mr. Domo, and the wolf that was recently the winner, and Worm. Evelyn casts a spell on Worm before Mr. Domo shoves him into a well after this, and this wolf that was the last winner from the wolf games now drinks the water after Worm was shoved into a well. The wolf then collapses unconscious. Rick recalls the ominous message carved into Fogbear's desk: all of them drown. The children retreat unnoticed back to their rooms. Back in the wolf cage, Fishbreath growls at the black wolf, who responds playfully, confusing her. He seems to be a bit different from the other wolves and a little bit less aggressive. If anything, it seems like he's trying to help. The wolf keeper now brings the winner back into the cell and apologizes about the whole thing, saying it will all be over soon. Fishbreath and and the Black Wolf watch in horror as the captive wolf howls in pain. After this horrifying sight, the Black Wolf offers Fishbreath an apple as a rare gesture of kindness. Miss Evelyn hands Ula a letter to deliver to Mr. Domo, while Ula secretly listens to Evelyn's conversation with the wolf keeper. The keeper confesses that he believes what they are doing to the wolves is wrong, but follows orders out of fear. Evelyn instructs him to prepare Fishbreath for the upcoming ceremony, where she will receive her quote-unquote reward as the next Wolf Games champion. Ula delivers the letters to Mr. Domo and questions why he complies with Evelyn's plans, but he offers no response, only a sad look. Meanwhile, Rick gazes out the window as Gabe expresses doubt about their escape plan, but Rick insists that they must try, recalling Ula's word about the wagon's arrival. Suddenly, Ula interrupts with grim news. The wagon will not come out tonight because the ritual is happening immediately, and Fishbreath is to be the next victim. The fairy orphan, who has been eavesdropping the whole time, is cautioned by Gabe never to be trusted, as fairies are arrogant and annoyingly rhyming all the time. Determined, Rick plans to get himself in trouble again so he can gain access to Miss Evelyn's office during his punishment. But Gabe warns that Mr. Domo will be watching him closely. Ula, however, reveals that Mr. Domo has duties that day. This gives him an opening. Rick asks Gabe to distract Miss Evelyn in the class by asking endless questions while Ula promises to help them get inside using her spells. For the magic to work, Ula needs something truly important. Gabe offers Mr. Butterbeans, explaining how the doll was his only friend until Rick arrived. Gabe implores Rick to promise he will never leave him behind, and Rick vows that he will escape altogether. The next day, Rick once again finds himself in trouble, but as he cleans, Ula appears to guide him. Together, they head to the office where Ula begins her spell with the cherished doll. Though it seems the magic may fail at first, it ultimately succeeds in granting them an entry. Inside, Rick retrieves his dagger, Ula locates the gatekeeper to escape, and Rick discovers the keys to the wolf yard. Ula also finds a missing page from her mother's journal, revealing the existence of the heart of the mountain. This confirms that the well is a gateway of some kind, though its purpose remains a mystery. As the wolves are released into their yards, the one who had been howling in pain continues in anguished cries and stays in the shed. The keeper, somber and defeated, announces that there will be no games today. When the second wolf keeper tries to restrain Fishbreath, the black wolf attacks to defend her. The original keeper, Mr. Owens, activates the leash's shocking device on the black wolf. He commands all the wolves to return to their cages. In a fierce display of defiance, Fishbreath breaks the device, and the surrounding wolves rally around her, their anger palpable. The keeper pleads that he never wished for the games. He was only carrying out his orders. Fishbreath approaches the wolf who had been banging its head against the fence, joining her side as she leads the other wolves in rebellion. The keeper claims they've gone mad as the wolves all collectively break through the barriers and escape into the wilderness. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Gabe's distracted gaze is noticed by Miss Evelyn, who considers ending class early. The students cheer at the prospect, but Gabe insists they continue so he can ask more questions, only to be met with a paper ball thrown at his head. As Rick and Ula arrives at the wolf yard, they find it eerily empty, searching desperately for Fishbreath. Their search leads them to the only locked cell remaining, which Rick promptly opens. Gabe's frantic gaze remains fixed outside the window, a restless energy that clearly unsettled Evelyn once again. Just as her irritation grew, the fairy suddenly interrupted, breaking the tension by revealing everything she had overheard while secretly eavesdropping on Gabe during his early conversation with Rick and Ula. Evelyn's shock was palpable, but instead of showing it, she dismissed the entire class except for Gabe. A sinister smile spread across her face as she told him quietly, but with unmistakable intent, that they had a lot to discuss. Meanwhile, Ula and Rick opened the cage, expecting to find only Fishbreath inside, but instead they were met with the sight of a dark green glowing silhouette that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. Realizing something was wrong, they immediately took off running, only to be pursued by a massive cursed wolf that thundered after them relentlessly. At the same time, Fishbreath and the other wolves were making their escape, but when Fishbreath heard the howls and spotted Rick, she said her goodbyes to the black wolf companion before turning her back to continue her fight. Rick, however, was quickly overpowered by the cursed wolf and was moments away from being devoured when Fishbreath leaped at the creature in a desperate attempt to protect him. The cursed wolf proved to be incredibly strong when Rick stabbed it with his dagger. The wolf only grew more enraged rather than weakened. It then cornered Rick, Ula, and Fishbreath with a ferocious glare. Suddenly, the black wolf howled loudly as he arrived with the other wolves. Then, the cursed wolf hesitated, locking eyes with the wolves and recognizing them. Without warning, it turned and fled alongside them, escaping once more. The black wolf gave Fishbreath a farewell before departing, leaving Fishbreath and Rick to reunite. Ula reminded them urgently that they still had to escape Underwood. But then, a shocking scene unfolded as Miss Evelyn appeared with Mr. Domo and Gabe, capturing the three of them. They were all taken to the well, where Miss Evelyn revealed that Gabe had told her everything. She then revealed that she possessed all of Ula's mother's belongings taken from the secret library. Domo, clutching his wife's painting in a gesture of sorrow, was ordered by Evelyn to put it back. Ignoring his sadness, she then ignited the entire collection, setting it ablaze. Ula screamed and cried out in anguish as her mother's portrait was consumed by the fire, while Rick demanded to know why Gabe had betrayed them and told Evelyn everything. Evelyn coldly explained that they were about to perform another quote-unquote offering to the well. Gabe reminded her that she had promised not to harm them if he told her everything, to which Evelyn assured him that she would keep her word. Then without hesitation, they threw Gabe into the well, drowning him. Following this, Evelyn commanded Domo to collect the well's water and forced Fishbread to drink it, just like the other cursed wolf had before. Rick pleaded desperately, trying to stop the proceedings, and even begged the Forest Goddess to intervene if she could hear his words. As Rick ran frantically towards Fishbread, Domo shoved her face into the water. Fishbread suffered horribly in agony from the cursed water. Rick tried to reach her, but it was too late. Holding Fishbread's lifeless body in his arms, tears streaming down his face, he demanded to know what Evelyn had done, only for her to coldly reply that she had done what he could never do. She had protected Fishbread. Back in the shed, both Rick and Fishbread were thrown into a cage. The keeper asked Evelyn if they should give Fishbread more of the black liquid she had consumed earlier, but Evelyn declined, confident that it would take effect soon enough. Turning to Rick, she told him it was time for him to grow up. She dropped Rick's dagger at his feet and told him he could either kill Fishbread to free her from the pain, or do nothing and be killed by her once she transformed. Her voice was cruel, filled with dark intent. Then Evelyn commanded Domo to leave Ula behind as motivation for Rick. Though Domo hesitated, Evelyn's orders were absolute, and he complied. Before leaving, Domo held up a large chalice cup filled with black water and told Ula it contained their family's history. Then, he shut the door on them firmly. Inside the cage, Rick spoke quietly with Ula, revealing that her mother had known the well was corrupted all along. Ula said she could attempt the spell to cure Fishbread, but needed something extremely important for it to work. Without hesitation, Rick handed her the sword that his father had given him, saying that it meant more to him than almost anything, but he would gladly give it up to save Fishbread in a second. Rick tries to find a way out, but they were trapped. He begged Ula for help, his voice filled with desperation, explaining how he had lost his only family, and now he says he definitely can't lose Fishbread too. He recalled how Domo had mentioned the chalice holding the black water, which was strange because Domo had not spoken for years. Looking at the chalice, Rick suddenly realizes that Ula's father had left them everything they needed. The doorway was never the well itself, but the chalice. Before they entered the well together, Rick admitted almost shyly that when Worm teased him about liking Ula, he had actually been right. He did like her. They stepped into the well and emerged into what appeared to be underwood, but it was different, older and darker, stranger, with ancient creatures dressed in suits labored endlessly. Gabe ended up being there too, but he had aged considerably. It became clear that this place, known as the heart of the mountain, existed in a realm where time moved differently. The other children were also present, all aged and trapped in some sort of trance, unresponsive and seemingly brain dead. Suddenly, Ula's amulet began to glow, and the house itself came alive, mistaking Ula for her mother. It introduced itself as Underwood and explained that the creature's slaves were dismantling it piece by piece. Ula and Rick offered help if Underwood would lend them the power needed to save the poisoned wolves and defeat Evelyn. Underwood showed him a shining glowing orb that radiated very dark magic. It was his own heart. Then, exhausted, it collapsed out of nowhere. Ula prepared to perform the spell using the heart and Rick's dagger, but suddenly Rick was struck by a magical zap from Evelyn, who appeared with the cursed Fishbread standing behind her. Fishbread did not recognize Rick and was about to attack, but Rick quickly cut a rope suspending a heavy metal object attached to the building, which crashed down on Fishbread, stopping her attack. Evelyn followed Ula as she fled deeper into Underwood, delusional and convinced that she was helping, believing this place was her home and her actions were justified. She declared she could no longer let Ula live because of everything that had happened recently, but if Ula surrendered, she would show mercy to Domo. Meanwhile, Fishbread launched an attack on Rick, pulling him into a dark vision where the evil goddess Bella spoke directly to him. Bella promised that she could save Fishbread if Rick performed one simple task, to place a stone that she gave him into a circle of gold-leaf trees where the forest goddess resided. Bella explained that by doing so, the woods would rot and the trees would turn to dust. Rick considered the offer at first, but then he refuses. He says he could not control the future or the past, and that every attempt to do so only made things worse. He confessed he could no longer worry about what might come and had to learn to let go. Bella warned that Fishbread would die otherwise, but Rick calmly replies that death is a part of life. There is no life without death. and no death without life. With that, he threw the stone back at Belith, who vanishes. Returning to Fish Breath, Rick finds her lying still and immobile. He yelled for Ula to complete the spell. Ula, holding the heart in her hand, saw it was still faintly beating. As she began the spell, Evelyn tried desperately to stop her, but Ula's amulet shattered, unleashing a powerful radiant light from the heart. This ended up turning Evelyn into stone. Not only that, but a great light shines everywhere, with Ula's spell healing both the heart of Underwood and Fish Breath. Underwood, now awoken fully, sends everyone back to their original realm. The once mindless slaves regained their awareness, though they remained aged. The wolves had overturned, reuniting with Fish Breath as well. Mr. Domo, no longer mute or acting strangely, approached Ula to apologize, explaining that he had only wanted to protect her and keep her safe. Ula said that she had missed him. It was unclear exactly what happened to Mr. Domo, but it seemed Evelyn had been controlling him in some way. Ula told Rick to stay, but he insisted he could not, as he needed to warn the forest goddess about Belith. He invited Ula to come with him so they could try to find her mother, but she declined, saying her place was with Underwood and she wanted to find a way to restore the youth stolen by their classmates. They questioned where Gay might be, and Rick said he needed some time alone. As Rick prepares to leave, he said goodbye, but Ula stopped him, saying this was not goodbye, because goodbye means an ending. Instead, she told him to touch his head to hers, as a sign of forever. Rick looked back sadly at Fishbreath enjoying her time with the wolf pack, and told her she had new friends now, and that a wolf belongs with her pack. Then, with a heavy heart, he left. Walking through the forest, tears streaming down his face, Rick reflected that Fishbreath had finally been given a chance at a real family, something that he no longer can have himself. She deserved happiness and freedom, but if what he had done was truly the right thing, he wondered why it hurt so bad. Suddenly, Fishbreath appeared behind him, smiling as she ran towards him, and Rick whispered, "I love you too." It seemed at last that it was true. A wolf belongs with his pack. And so, the story ends. Or did it? Deep within the forest, Bella's voice echoed. In the whispering woods lies a circle of gold-leaf trees. Do you know where it leads? Meanwhile, a now grown but eerily angry Gabe looked at his reflection. Holding the fairy stone Rick had thrown back at Belith, with a determined voice, he replies, I do. I think what makes Goblin mean so much to me isn't just the story, but what it represents. It's a quiet, overlooked comic about someone who doesn't quite fit, trying to carve a space in a world that doesn't seem to have one for them. And honestly, I felt like that too. This whole channel was built for stories like that, for the weird ones, the emotional ones, and the ones that no one else talks about. I've always been drawn to the underdogs, those characters that seem silly or small, but actually have way more depth than you realize. And maybe that's because I relate to that. Before this channel even started, I knew I didn't want to just follow what was trending. I wanted to build something real, something different, a universe for the forgotten, the strange, and the really good stuff hiding in plain sight. And somehow Goblin ended up being the first indie comic I ever covered. It wasn't planned, it just kind of sort of found me. And now looking back, it feels like the perfect first step. Like Rick, I'm still figuring things out, but I'm choosing to move forward anyways, with heart, with curiosity, and with stories that really matter. Because if I can make a space for comics like this, the ones that usually get overlooked, then maybe this little universe I'm building is doing exactly what it's meant to do. So whether this is your first time watching, or you've been here for a while, thank you for being a part of this journey. You're not just watching a channel. You're helping me build a space where the stories no one else tells finally gets the spotlight they deserve. Thank you.